Apropos of nothing, I've had this CD, this album in my mind the last couple of days. It's the Iceberg by Ice-T, and it's actually more the subtitle: Freedom of Speech. Just watch what you say. And this CD has mystified and terrified me ever since I bought it at Newbury Comics, probably around fall 1991. I've never quite understood this album, even though I've enjoyed it. And I think what I want to do now is just put Ice-T in the proper context as a constitutional warrior, as a true champion of free speech who is testing its bounds in the late 80s and early 90s. I want to give him flowers. That's why I'm doing this video. If you might feel this has some connection, I'm done making explicitly political videos. This is not an explicitly political video. It might be implicit. Okay, you might infer some things that I might be implying, but this is a video about Ice-T and about his war in the name of free speech. Now, in general, he doesn't quite get his flowers, probably because we live in what can only be called a state of permanent and ever-renewing cultural amnesia. We are essentially Dory from Finding Nemo. And someone does something, and then 3 seconds later, we forget what they did. So allow me to remind you of who Ice-T was, and that might be in some stark contrast to what you think he is. So, I got this CD, again, probably Newbury Comics, probably around 1991, and I didn't quite understand it. I understood the Iceberg thing, he's cold, he's a murderer, he's a gangster, all that stuff. That's what I wanted, I was hoping for an album like the DOC or NWA or Eazy-E, he's a West Coast gangster rap guy. And when my brother had Power on cassette, we loved that album, that's what I was expecting. But what is all this stuff about free speech? Why is Ice-T going on and on and on and on about free speech? I didn't understand it. And part of it was I didn't understand his importance. And maybe you don't either. Just last week or earlier this week, I gave a list of a woefully incomplete list. Part 2 is coming soon. Thank you all for telling me who I missed. I missed a lot of people. But I put Ice-T on there as a superstar, somebody who started with rap, but whose name is ubiquitous. And I put him in the mostly visual, assorted reasons category. So I don't think he's a superstar primarily for his musical contributions. But at this point, it's mainly for his commercial presence, his advertising skill, whether it's Geico or Cheerios. The fact that he's been playing Finn on Law and Order for decades. He's been a high-profile police officer on TV for a very long time, probably encouraging many, many, many people to join law enforcement, which we will see is quite ironic. But I want to remind you of a time where he was a superstar for infamy, not for fame. But before we even get there, let's just rewind it one more second to make sure we give Ice-T his flowers properly. The dude is from New Jersey. Even though he's like one of the faces of LA rap, he started off in New Jersey. He served in the military for 4 years with an honorable discharge. He helped to launch hip-hop in the West Coast. Like not just rap, but hip-hop. His first acting role wasn't in SVU. It wasn't even in New Jack City. It was in the movie Breakin', because he was a b-boy. Then also his second big role was in the movie Breakin' 2, Electric Boogaloo. He did all of that before he essentially launched gangster rap music. Now, he borrowed the format. He apparently called Schoolie D and asked for permission to borrow the format of the song PSK, What Does It Mean? And thereby transplanted the word gangster rap from Philadelphia, where it was barely even born, just a little tiny baby. He took that little zygote and he helped turn it into what it would become in LA. In that one song, 6 in the Morning, one of the great rap songs of all time, he even outlines what I think and what I use when I teach hip-hop as the defining lyric of hip-hop in the 80s. So he makes reference to rocks, which is a word for crack, and batter rams. At this point, the LAPD would often use battering rams to break into people's houses if they were under suspicion of being involved in the drug trade. And this was seen as being tough on crime because the same United States government that turned a blind eye when people were trafficking cocaine into the streets were trying as hard as they could to take mostly young black men and put them off the streets by putting them into jail. Anyways, here's the lyric that Ice-T wrote, which I use to I just put it on my final in my class and just say explain. The batter rams rollin', rocks are the thing. Life has no meaning, and money is king. That's the poetry and the power of Ice-T. And he was an early rap actor. I remember when he was in New Jack City. I was excited that one of the guys who was on the tapes that my brother used to listen to was going to be in a movie. And then we get to this damn album all about freedom of speech. Look at that album cover. Look at how unpleasant that is. Look at what he's trying to communicate to you. I didn't understand what that meant. I didn't understand what it was. I mean, I knew what the Raiders cap was because that's what everyone wore and thought was cool. But what does it mean? Well, let's go into it. Let's analyze Ice-T not as a famous actor and spokesperson, but as a free speech warrior. The title track, or semi-title track, Freedom of Speech, starts off with someone saying, "Hey, yo, Iceman, I'm working on this term paper for college. What's the First Amendment?" This is the first thing. Yeah, talk to a communications professor sometime. They will have fun tearing their hair out because people use the term First Amendment all the time. I'll read it for you. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. Which means that the First Amendment is explicitly about the government. It is about government interference. It is not about private companies or individuals telling you not to say something. It is about the government interfering in our free speech. So what was he talking about back in 1989? Well, I'll tell you. He gives a definition of the First Amendment here. Are you ready? Of freedom of speech. This is Ice-T's definition of freedom of speech. Freedom of speech. That's some motherfucking bullshit. You say the wrong thing, they'll lock your ass up quick. The FCC says profanity, no airplay. They can suck my dick while I take a shit all day. Thank you, Mr. T. Not Mr. T. Mr. Ice-T. So what is this about? What is this about? Well, it's about the sticker. You know, the sticker that warns you that there's going to be swears. You know, you can see it on this. Oh, it's not on there. You see, there's someone named Tipper Gore, the wife of the future not President Al Gore, who got really excited about music being too sexual. It was actually Little Nicky. If Little Nicky hadn't been masturbating in the hotel lobby, none of this would have happened. But alas, Little Nicky was, I would say thankfully, it's a great lyric, Little Nicky was masturbating in the hotel lobby. By the way, Prince, what did that look like? What kind of hotel is this? Who can just... Anyways, that's not the point of this video. So they started the PMRC, the Parents Music... something committee. Restriction committee? I don't know what it is, but it was the group of people who argued on behalf of parents, on parents' rights to protect their children from bad words, especially sexual. So the next lyric in the song, Ice-T makes it specific. Think I give a fuck, and it's a little bit misogynist. I don't think he needs to emphasize the fact that Tipper Gore is a woman as much as he does, but hey, freedom of speech. I don't like it. Think I give a fuck about some silly B word named Gore. Yo, PMRC, here we go, raw. Yo, Tip, as in Tipper Gore. What's the matter? You ain't getting no dick? I would say. I don't know anything about the private life of Al and Tipper Gore. I would imagine that Al Gore is not a particularly generous lover. But it's Friday. I'm just done teaching for the week. So I just said that out loud. And while I was saying it, I was like, should I say this? Is that good for you? Have you seen my graphs? Okay. You bitching about rock and roll, that's censorship, dumb B word. So it was this whole thing that was happening throughout the 80s of how are we going to communicate? How is the government, these are congressional hearings. How can we get the government to step in and ensure that there is some monitoring of speech? That these stickers are put on. See, the reason that I was never really scandalized by any of this stuff is that my parents listened to Frank Zappa. And when I first listened to Frank Zappa, I was like, Eazy-E's got shit on Frank Zappa. Eazy-E, Frank Zappa's talking about corn cobs and mud sharks, and man, he's dirty as hell. Dynamo Hum. If you know, you know. Frank Zappa's a dirty, dirty guy. Okay, only guy who got a got a warning explicit lyrics sticker on an instrumental album. So anyway, that's how I grew up. Zappa was there during the 80s fighting against this because he saw what it was. It was a push on the companies to censor themselves. And they did. They bowed to the government and they made up those little stickers. They made those little stickers and then they started printing them directly on the album to warn people. Parental advisory, warning, explicit lyrics. I mean, it was voluntary by the companies, so it's not a First Amendment thing. Just because they're being pushed around by representatives of the most powerful people on earth, I guess it's not a First Amendment question. Or do we agree with Ice-T? Or do we agree with Ice-T that it's a bunch of fucking bullshit? Now, that's why I particularly like here that Ice-T, on this album, does not even contain the warning sticker. That's my name right there because, when I went to college, everyone kept stealing my CDs, so I had to put my name on all of it. I'm an old man. What do you want? You can see down there, freedom of speech, just watch what you say. I would like to give him credit for actually putting on the CD his own warning label, which is quite cute. I don't know if I'll be able to show this there because it might be too reflective. Okay, so it says, Ice-T, parents strongly cautioned. Some material may be extra hype and inappropriate for squares and suckers. You tell him, Ice. But the third drill is there's no sticker on there, despite the fact, what's the song called? Is it called Power Drill? It's called Black and Decker. Man, it's this album, man. It's a good album. It's a good album. He sometimes gets corny with his lyrics, but that's Ice-T. What are you going to do? A song called Black and Decker, which just contains the sound of someone drilling into somebody's skull. Blood-sucking freaks just like your mama. But the third verse of this song isn't about the sticker. It's about Columbus, Georgia. Hello, collective amnesia. Do you know about Columbus, Georgia? I'd forgotten about Columbus, Georgia. Columbus, Georgia was a town that the government decided that it could just throw people in jail for saying things they don't like. In the words of Ice-T, Columbus, Georgia said they'd lock me up if I got on stage in my show and said fuck. So I thought for a minute and I said no, I wasn't even going to do the show. LL Cool J was arrested for dry humping a couch during the song I Need Love. I sit in the back of the room, I hear my conscience call, I hump couch. Now listen, this is before the current Vice President of the United States of America has made couch humping mandatory. But he's still in jail. He's still in jail for that. Bobby Brown was arrested for just dirty dancing, for just being Bobby Brown. The man is Dirty Dancing. You might as well not even let him get on stage, So this happened. This was a thing that happened in our country. This was a thing which is a direct attack on our free speech. This somehow was allowed to happen despite the fact it is expressly anti-constitutional. And so Ice-T ends it with this. Freedom of speech, let them take it from me. Next, they'll take it from you. Then what are you going to do? Let them censor books, let them censor art. PMRC, this is where the witch hunt starts. You'll censor what we see, we read, we hear, we learn. The books will burn. You better think it out. We should be able to say anything. Our lungs were meant to shout. We've only got one right left in the world today. Let me have it or throw the Constitution away. Ice-T said all of that. Okay? And again, if you are inferring anything by what I am saying, that is on you. I am not implying anything here. It's history. Sometimes people ask, Sky, why do you teach history? Because it tells us what's happening right now. How else would we know what's happening right now if we didn't study what happened before? All of this whole story about the iceberg and freedom of speech, watch what you say, was before he became the most censored artist, I would say, in the history of civilization, in the history of democracy. See, he released an album, a heavy metal album, called Body Count. starring his band Body Count and the song Cop Killer in 1992, 3 years after that. I'm not going to hold up the CD because I don't like Body Count. I first heard that, I was like, ugh. I do not want to hear Ice-T do hard rock music. I didn't like it on the Judgment Night soundtrack. I don't like it here. I love Ice-T. I support Ice-T, but this is not my thing. I personally don't like it. Tell me in the comments if I'm missing out. Maybe it's better than I remember. Maybe I was just trying to pigeonhole him as a certain kind of artist. But the song Cop Killer, as you can probably imagine from the title, is a story, a first-person story written from the perspective of somebody who wants to murder a police officer. Cop killer, better you than me. Cop killer, fuck police brutality. Cop killer, I know your mama's grieving. Fuck her. Cop killer, but tonight we get even. Die, die, die. Pig, die. Fuck the police. To say this song set off a firestorm is an understatement. I lived through this time. This produced one of the greatest moral panics that I can remember, and I was 14 years old. So, I'd already spent a little bit of time studying Ice-T's art and music and trying to understand all the things he was trying to say. I was so naive back then, I didn't even know that the term freak had a sexual connotation. So all of the songs, when he rap about freaks, I had images of just like very strange looking women with like some kind of like physical deformities. I'm like, man, this guy's, I wouldn't have said this guy's freaky. I would have said this guy's strange. So what happened? What happened when the song was released? Well, the vice president and the president came out. Many police organizations came out, especially some in Texas. Interestingly, not the Black Police Union. But they all came out, and they didn't attack Ice-T. They attacked Warner Brothers, who released the album. Can you imagine? Can you imagine if we live in a time where in order to censor an individual, you go after the company that pushes them forward, that produces their art? That's diabolical, man. Can you imagine someone doing that? Like trying to get someone to stop saying something. So you go as hard as you possibly can at the company that puts out the record. That's diabolical because it's not like free speech. I believe I quote Dan Quayle here. It's not has nothing to do, who is the vice president. It has nothing to do with freedom of expression. It has everything to do with corporate greed. Can you imagine going after a prominent black celebrity for their words and hiding behind the argument, I'm not suing a person, I'm suing a record label? It's amazing to think this might happen again. They went so far as to organize a boycott of Batman Returns. You know, the best Batman movie. I really like Batman Returns. I really do. The one with Danny DeVito, Catwoman, that came out in that summer. And they were organizing it. So like all the way back then, they understood that it wasn't going to work to go after the individual. You have to go after the company. Ice-T himself, if you watch clips from the time, interviews from the time, he's completely confused. He's like, why are you going after the company instead of going after me? The governor of Alabama called for it to be banned. James Brown also came out against it. Listen, James Brown was on the wrong side of history for a lot of things. Doesn't mean he still isn't one of the 5 most important Americans of all time, okay? People contain multitudes. Ice-T, during all of this, he had a lot of different ways he could do it, right? Obviously, he was getting death threats, and he was the center of a firestorm, and he was really annoying the police, and the LA riots after the Rodney King verdict was just a year before. These were very hot times. This was... in our sort of collective memory, we sort of act like Fuck the Police was as big as this, but it wasn't at all. In terms of like the popular zeitgeist, like everyday people who you talk to, everybody talked about Cop Killer. Fuck the Police was a much, at least in my memory, you tell me if you're a fellow old person and you remember this time, I remember Fuck the Police being much less disruptive than Cop Killer was. So Ice-T could have done anything. He could have apologized. He could have explained himself. He could have tried to contextualize things, but he said this. This record is about racists and parents that teach racism and brutal police. If they are my enemy, so be it. Yeah, we're talking about Finn. We're talking about the guy in the Geico commercial with the iced tea, okay? Here's an even better quote that he gave. It's called the first person. It's called poetic license. And obviously, these ignorant pigs don't know nothing about music. Can we get that on a shirt? Obviously, these ignorant pigs don't know nothing about music. I'll include a link to a great compilation I found on YouTube of just all of many news stories at the time, especially MTV News, because they were doing great work back then. A lot of news stories about this at the time, and you can kind of see all these things. Ice-T even says, if the police were an honest organization, I'd probably be a cop, which makes sense because when you close your eyes now and you imagine Ice-T, probably what you imagine is him as a police officer in SVU. MTV also happened to throw on, was it Tabitha, what was Tabitha's last name? You tell me in the comments. she just offhandedly say that the Supreme Court did hold up burning crosses as free speech. I assume she was referring to the 1991 case, which I believe was resolved in 1992, RAV versus the city of St. Paul. Please tell me in the comments if you're a lawyer and you know more about this story. But I do know that it is officially free speech to burn crosses. I think I read that you just can't burn them at somebody. Okay. I guess we decided freedom of speech. And then he caved. Then Ice-T said, I want to take the record. I want to take the song off the record. Now, I don't know his intention. I don't. I think he was... I think he knew that the record was doing as well as it was going to do. It was going to get as much attention as it possibly could get, but that it hadn't sold out and he hadn't sold as many records as he could. So my philosophy, this is not backed up by anybody, this is just off the dome. I think he said that and he did that so that people would run out and buy it. And the stories at the time were they were selling 4 or 5 copies, and then he told everyone they were going to be replacing it with a version without Cop Killer, and everyone went out to buy it because they had to have the Cop Killer. Even I thought about it, even though I didn't really like Cop Killer. I didn't really like Body Count. And he finally said, come and get me, not Warner's. That's why he took it away. He said that the song belonged to South Central, and it is known as the biggest example of censorship in rap history. Except, hey, everybody, it's not a rap song. It's a punk song. It's a hardcore song. It's a speed metal song. It's not a rap song. What? Why? Why did this contribute to scrutiny over rap artists when it was actually, even though it was made by a rap artist, it wasn't even a rap song? Dan Quayle, the vice president, after the song was removed, did a victory lap. And if this reminds you of anything that anybody in power is saying right now, you've got a dirty mind, my friend. I'm glad that they did respond to my criticism and the president's criticism. I hope that this establishes a precedent, that companies like Time Warner have responsibility. They cannot just hide behind free speech. They cannot hide behind the Constitution, said Vice President Dan Quayle in 1992. Final word on Ice-T and this beguiling album. The opening track was one of the most important tracks in my life because it introduced me to a couple of white artists I didn't know. Ice-T is not on the first track. It's Jello Biafra, the lead singer of Dead Kennedys. I knew of the Dead Kennedys because I saw the cool older kids wearing their t-shirts, but I didn't know what they were. This was back when punk and rock music could be actually revolutionary, you know? That's what the Dead Kennedys were. And so this was this amazing mixture of a black revolutionary and a white revolutionary working together. Can you imagine what that would actually achieve? How scary that would actually be for the powers that be? Hypothetically? That's pretty powerful. And the music bed is just the song Black Sabbath by the band Black Sabbath off the album Black Sabbath. I'd never heard that song. I'd never heard a single Ozzy Osbourne or Black Sabbath song by the time I was 13, 14 years old. Never heard it. They just weren't on the radio. So down, 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 awesome Bill Ward drumming, you know? And then we have these lyrics. I'm just going to read these lyrics to you. in praise of Ice-T, in praise of Jello Biafra, in praise of music that can be upsetting and can help to foment actual change and perhaps even revolution. We interrupt this program with a special bulletin. America is now under martial law. All constitutional rights have been suspended. Stay in your homes. Do not attempt to contact loved ones, insurance agents, or attorneys. Shut up. Do not attempt to think or depression may occur. Stay in your homes. Curfew is 7 p.m. sharp after work. Anyone caught outside the gates of their subdivision sectors after curfew will be shot. Remain calm. Do not panic. Your neighborhood watch officer will be by to collect urine samples in the morning. Anyone caught interfering with the collection of urine samples will be shot. Stay in your homes. Remain calm. The number one enemy of progress is question. National security is more important than individual will. All sports broadcasts will proceed as normal. No more than 2 people may gather anywhere without permission. Use only the drugs prescribed by your boss or supervisor. Shut up. Be happy. Obey all orders without question. The comfort you demanded is now mandatory. Be happy. At last, everything is done for you. There's the camera.